Hello and good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise It is today. I am Chamberlain Oso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning. Don't forget, today is October 11. It's a Wednesday morning. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's quite, frightening, the decay, in our road infrastructure, lack of effective supervision, in most cases, the dishonesty of our contractors, and the setting we inherited is such that, project wouldn't have been completed even in 20 years. But we are tackling the challenges. We know the reasons, but I must commend the past administration, their thoughtfulness in the number of projects they earmarked and awarded, the quite key projects that we crystallize into economic revolution. But that is the problem we have in Nigeria. The president, the ministers, the governors who have good setting, they paid for these routes. But then it is up to us Nigerians to ensure that things are rightly done for the benefit of all of us. And so when there are failures, we should place the blames rightly where it belongs. Not where people don't do their work, then leadership is blamed. That is very wrong. We have to begin to disaggregate responsibilities and blames and apportion it where it belongs. And I believe everybody will sit up.
Everybody will sit up. Can we all get up first and do the things that we need to do? I mean, going back in time, Chamberlain, you would remember that a good number of times in the Jonathan administration as well as in the Buhari administration, it was from the office of the vice president in the last administration particularly, that information came out about the value of abandoned projects in the nation. And so in talking about decay in our infrastructure, one is wondering, quite honestly, whether or not it is something that we're taking very, very seriously, serious enough to do what needs to be done about it. Good to know, as a good number of people have said and called attention to what, Engineer Dave Umahi, Minister of Works, is doing. But then the fact that all hands must be on deck is something that needs to be given a lot of attention. Everyone needs to do what we need to do. But, Chairman, I continue to harp on a number of things, one of which is collaboration. In terms of infrastructural decay, I'm wondering what the Ministry of Works will be doing in the area of systemizing and ensuring that the systems of maintenance are active and functional. I'm wondering what the minister will be doing with regard to the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency. I'm wondering how that agency will be collaborating with various state governments where federal roads are, and how they will ensure that the collaboration between the federal and state authorities do not get in the way of delivering service to the people. I'm wondering how we will ensure that government infrastructure, within buildings, in roads, in facilities, are not allowed to go under. Well, for FEMA, we are talking about roads. How about other infrastructure of government in various parts of the country that needs attention and we need to find a way to ensure that they not only work, but that they are maintained so they don't get bad to the point that we have to start all over again, as we have had to do with the major roads in the nation, the Second Niger Bridge, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja-Kaduna Road, and so many others that the federal government is already thinking about. It's a bother, if you ask me, and it's a number of things, something that many of us should be very, very worried about. I'm just wondering, Chamberlain, how we will ensure that the things that need to be done are done. We hear also that contractors are ganging up against the initiative that the minister has taken in the area of ensuring that certain materials, such as concrete, is used to make the roads instead of asphalt. Talking about infrastructure decay again, we have referenced on this program that there are roads made in the 50s that are still standing. Some of them just need, if they had been maintained the way they ought to have been maintained, believe me, I don't think we will have such infrastructural deficit as we have now. Don't we have any idea anymore, or have we forgotten how world organizations, multilateral organizations have told us countless times and repeatedly that in order to match the infrastructural deficit that we have in the nation, we will need something in the region of $10 trillion annually. In up to 10 maybe, is it 10 trillion or 10 million? Well, some huge amount in dollars annually to be able to match up with the infrastructural deficit that we have. Now we are now dealing with infrastructural decay. Come on. Shouldn't we, how are we going to sit up, Chamberlain?
Well, some of those experts say that it's between $100 and $150 billion annually for the next 30 years if we're to close the infrastructural deficit in this country. That is huge. And it just tells us the scope of work, the kind of challenge we've got ahead of us if we're to fix things and get things moving. Because we all know that if we do not have the appropriate infrastructure, we know that several things will never get to the level we can achieve what we all intend to. So, and I think the former Minister of Works too spoke on that severally, how we needed to probably revisit our budgeting system so that all of these kinds of contracts don't get jeopardized along the way. That seems to be a problem. It seems to be a challenge. But we're hoping that as this minister continues in that stead, that they would have a proper look into it and see how we need to ensure that when these things start, they aren't stopped in the middle of the work that they're doing. But we all know, too, that the quality of roads that we have seen in different parts of the country needs a lot, sure leaves a lot to be desired. So if this minister is thinking, look, we need to do things differently, and we've all harped consistently on how we don't seem to have the right data to plan. So when they're constructing certain roads, if you don't have the proper data to plan for the people who applied that road, you know you have a challenge, let alone using poor quality materials to build that road. So you know it's going to be triple the challenge. So concrete, we've seen some persons use it, and we've seen how durable, at least the minister has made that point clearly. So whatever the reasons why they're pushing back, they all need to have a second look, because to the average person out there who thinks, what's wrong in having roads that you won't have to go back and worry about those roads in the next 30 to 50 years? Who doesn't want that? So those are the things that we think that, yeah, we should have a look and see if it works for us. We should apply it. And by the way, the president has signed off on that, saying, look, that seems to be the way to go. So let's go ahead and follow through with that path, because we need our infrastructure up and running so we can see at least where public funds is being utilized, albeit properly, because we need to put a lot of searchlights, as a matter of fact, on all of those projects. I think the former minister, this minister too, they want to continue in that step. So those are the things we need to see. And by the way, the dailies that we're going to start with, The Guardian, also highlights all of those materials, the challenges that we will face. What kind of impact will it have on the budgets and the expenditure? All of those items are highlighted. But if it's going to be good for us all, why not? So that's it. Let's take you through some of the dailies. We'll start with The Guardian, which I did highlight a moment ago. Look at this. FG's bid for concrete roads to spike capex amid 10 trillion naira owed contractors. So, well, they need to also find out, okay, how is it that the contractors are owed? If things were not being done right properly previously, what is it? Is it the budgeting system? What exactly are the issues? And so why were they not back on site? So all of those things. And don't forget too, what they tell us, some contractors, is when these funds are released, certain persons in certain ministries or agencies who demand a certain percentage, outrageous ones, of kickback, end up frustrating contracts or contractors from achieving and doing the work. So when they then demand this huge kickback, you leave the contractors with no option than to go and get you inferior materials, because they could care less, because they too have got to do business to be profitable. So ministries, MDAs, the political heads have to find a way to independently ensure that contractors come back to them with direct feedback, confidentially, so that They know the root, because look, you can't be working to ensure things are done right and something somewhere is sabotaging your works. You won't want that. I don't know who wants it. So, and then look at this. Amounts allocated for road construction yearly. So you see that there it says FG controls about 34,000 kilometers out of Nigeria's estimated 193,200 kilometers of roads. So the states have a huge chunk too. And then you see 2.4 trillion naira spent on road construction in 24 years. Only 4 trillion naira has been paid out of the 14 trillion naira owed contractors. This is huge. So we need to ask ourselves, okay, why is this the case? What happened? What is the bottleneck? How do we move forward? These are the questions that ministries need to also ensure that they pay attention to. So concerning the amount allocated for road construction yearly, in 2016, 301.8 billion naira, 2017, 347.5 billion naira, and it goes on and on. But you also see 2023, 356 billion for both works and housing, out of which 321 billion was budgeted for capital projects in 2023. So those are the things you may want to just go ahead and have a look. That is The Guardian this morning.
You know, Chamberlain, it's exciting that you talked about people getting service delivery. For one of the instruments of state is what they call Servicom. Servicom is supposed to ensure that people get value for service and in any federal or maybe even state government civil service office. And so it is for you to get service failure feedback. Get your service failure feedback to the ministries, departments, and agencies. Thankfully, it's online. So anyone who gets a contract and someone is saying, if you don't do this, you will not do this, that's one platform that I believe you can use to ventilate. But look at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Amidst high inflation, IMF asks CBN to continue raising interest rate. Well, that's on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. The riders, economic growth too weak for that, according to an expert. Nigeria's growth projection cut to 2.9%. A focus on non-debt funds flow, according to the FG. Stabilized Naira, curb speculative forex. Reps urge CBN. The details of that you have on the front page. Well, details continue on pages 4 and 20. And look at this one. Vehicle import drops by over 100% in 5 years. What does that mean? It means we're not importing cars anymore. A number of other stories on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, but that's it for the paper this morning.
Okay, so New Telegraph then. Oil theft. Senate orders probe of security agencies in Niger Delta. Did you say about time? Well, I know people also say, to what end this time? To what end? It has several probes, I know, but that would be a valid question. But what it is right now. But look at the writer. It says, Nigeria has lost 2.3 trillion naira revenue this year. Reps probe use of dollar as legal tender. Threats over reduction in investments. Say weaker naira will increase external debt servicing costs, stunt economic growth, hinder job creation. Yeah, so you see that here. And then INEC clears 5.4 million voters to elect Bayelsa, Imo, Kogi governors. Holds mock accreditation Sunday, among several others. So huge focus on INEC now in terms of ensuring that voters have a lot of confidence to come forward and vote. And political parties also have that confidence to send what INEC has complained about, saying, well, poor performance with the registration of party agents, officers. Who knows? Who knows? So that is the big one here you see on New Telegraph.
One story from the front page of the Daily Trust, beg your pardon, the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Niger Delta senator fingers those behind oil theft. So do we know them now? Be bold enough to probe security agencies in oil-rich region, Senate tells FG. Upper Chamber kicks off own investigation. $2.3 trillion crude stolen in 1 year by cabals. Security operatives lobby for posting to Niger Delta. That's ascribed to Shomole. Find the details of that on page 2. So with the fingering out, do we now know them? That's the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
A big question. Well, they also ordered the probe, don't forget. So who knows if those kind of narratives will come through at that particular session. Take a look at Vanguard next. They focus on Israel-Hamas war. FG halts pilgrimage as Lagos airlifts 310 from Jerusalem. Israel pounds Gaza despite threats to kill hostages. Death toll exceeds 1,900 as oil prices surge. Conflict taking horrendous toll on children, as is described to UNICEF. So you see that big lead here. Insecurity, this is at the bottom stream, will help Nigeria overcome banditry, kidnapping, Boko Haram. Right to EU. Okay. So I know you could say we need all the help we can get, but why is this still a thing? How many years on now? All right. There's a bit here about bad roads. FG giving contractors 14-day ultimatum. Here, it's on the front page. So, yeah, that is, there's Mr. and Mrs. here too. Mr. Italian Mrs. I think it's Mrs. first of all saying, you call yourself my legal wife. Are there wives that are not legal? Of course, you can get almost anything from the black market. Okay, so. And don't forget to take a look at the back page as well. There's a lot of sports stories there. You can calm your nerves if you're football aficionado. That is Vanguard this morning.
Okay, now we know that women is another commodity you can find on the black market. Now we know. We have men on that black market as well? I don't know. The Daily Independent newspaper is next, and look at the front page, the lead story of Daily Independent this morning. Minister, contractors on collision course over concrete road. We talked about this earlier. FG gives contractors strict conditions to use asphalt. Do we have the interest of Nigeria at heart? Well, Chamberlain, one of the examples of those roads is the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway. No, is it Apapa-Oshodi Expressway? Yeah, I think it is. You need to apply that road to experience it. I don't even know the word to use. It's amazing what you have on that road now, the way that road is. So that's an example of one road in Nigeria, and I'm sure there are a number of others. At the bottom of that picture, reps probe use of foreign currencies for transactions in Nigeria. You remember we had this conversation before here in the country when we hosted Mr. Taiwo Idele, the presidential committee chairman, about countries, actually, MDAs that are mandated by law to get their returns in foreign currencies. So the legality of that or the propriety of that is a question we need to answer. 737,308 score 5 credits in maths, English as NECO releases results. That's right there. Panic as price of cooking gas hits 1,200 per kilogram. Find the details of that on page 6. And this last one, Tinubu to supervise National Social Investment Program. That's according to the Senate. Does that mean that the president is going to also supervise the National Social Register? That's the Daily Independent newspaper this morning.
Okay, Nigerian Tribune is next. Crude oil theft. Senate to probe security forces, militia groups. So quite some focus they intend to have on the oil sector, and now they're talking about militia groups in the same breath. So we'll keep focus on that and see what happens. They have their bit at the contractors matter. That's at the bottom strip here. Contractors in gang up against FG over policy on asphalt, ascribed to Works Minister. And then you see compromised staff will be flushed out, sent to ICPC, he says. So if we need to get the work done, we need to make what? An omelette? Got to break an egg. So who knows? Who knows? That's Tribune this morning.
The Nigerian News Direct, and what do you have on its front page? Forgery allegation. Atiku Abubakar clarifies confusion in academic credentials amidst controversy. Find the details of that on page 4. Admits using Sadiq Abubakar as proxy for WAEC exams. And a number of other stories you'll find on the front page. Right above the nameplate, reps to probe alleged adoption of dollar, other foreign currencies as legal tender in Nigeria. I think we need to find a way to standardize these things, because in the hospitality industry, for instance, if you go to some websites and you want to, just make inquiries, you'll find that the rates are dollarized. On Nigerian, the websites of some some of these hotels. So yeah, that is that. If we're going to probe, can we go that far to some of these hospitality businesses that do just that? The details of that are on the inside pages. If you can quickly take a look at the Business Day newspaper this morning. Business Day is looking at flush with cash, banks boost lending. The details of that you find on the front page, continues on the inside pages. And look at this one. Job losses in manufacturing hit 3-year high. It is a concern that we have raised quite a number of times, the number of job losses, and that is just for the businesses that are retrenching. How about the risk of some of these businesses folding up? It's a concern that we have to give some attention to as well. Right above the nameplate, you have that one. Nigeria's alternative energy thirsts for infrastructure policies. Most certainly. Are we just mouthing it, or is we actually plan on doing something about it? So it's something that should give us a bit of concern. That's the Business Day newspaper this morning, bringing us to the end of a look at some of the papers and the front pages of some of the dailies this morning. We're back right after now. The first topic after this break.
It is less than 2 months to the forthcoming November governorship elections in Kogi State, and this meeting with journalists in Abuja is organized by the state governor to, among other matters, appraise preparations for the exercise.
As a politician,
speaking in retrospect, Governor Yahaya Bello told the gathering that he is satisfied with the achievements of his administration.
The sole aim of our coming to office was to serve the people. And I know that in the last 7 years plus, we have taken Kogi State from where it is to be to this level, and we can only head to the next level for the betterment of our people. I'm not leaving office to go and be quiet. I will be in my own corner to ensure that I continue to add value to the good governance of both Kogi State, Nigeria, and of course to democracy in general.
The issue of security.
The conversations here also touch on issues of security in the state, especially in the light of the forthcoming elections.
What I can assure you is that that election is going to be very free, fair, and peaceful. There won't be violence at all, as the state government is determined to ensure that no blood is spilled because somebody wants to assume the position of power.
Let me mention here that the federal government of Nigeria must pay diligent attention to states like Kogi State, particularly in area of security. A safer Kogi is a reptile for FCT, Abuja. Therefore, a special funding should be provided for the state in order to continue to check influx of criminal elements from other neighboring states, particularly to Abuja.
Governor Yahaya Bello is promising a fair election on November 11, 2023.
Yeah, welcome back. So that is the man we've got here in the studios right now, Mr. Olayinka Brimo, the governorship candidate of Action Alliance for the forthcoming Kogi governorship elections. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
So how's your campaign coming on?
It's going on very well. In the last few months, we've been going around the entire state, selling our candidacy to the electorate.
So how is that playing out? Because, I mean, several people always see these concerns raised about security. INEC themselves raise concerns about security in the state. How are you dealing with it?
Well, in terms of security, so far, there have been some threats here and there. But so far, in terms of our own campaign, we've been going around the entire state. We've not had any attack in any form in our campaign because we've been focused on issues that affect the state. It's an issue-based campaign that we've been doing. We've not attack or insult any personality or any individual across the state. So we've been focused on issues.
But do you consider that a genuine concern, security, violence in the forthcoming election?
Of course, it is a genuine concern, because everybody feels like, even though you don't have violence at this stage, there's possibility of violence during the election day itself. So it's a huge concern at the moment because of some certain things you hear, you pick up from here and there as to people planning to say, we'll ensure that where they're not popular, they will create violence, just to make sure that the votes there don't count. That threat is there. And those are the things that we hear every day. So that is a huge concern. And then we urge that we believe that the security agencies will look into that. Security, 2-3 days to election and on election day itself.
So what would you say to those who think, well, you may not be considered the front runner. That's why maybe nobody is threatening you or trying to drag you or pull you down. How about that?
Maybe some 3 months or 4 months ago, that consideration might not be there then.
Okay.
But today, I'm sure the governing power will tell you. I'm sure the other candidates will tell you.
Why do you think you're a front runner?
Because I have the solution to the problems of the state. Our primary problem in the state is poverty. And I have the solution. Because I've been the only candidate that's been able to clearly state my vision, clearly engage with electorate with my vision, a clear vision of wealth creation and wealth distribution. Because the challenge of our state these days is poverty. We've had 4 administrations over 2 decades, and our people and poverty has continued to increase on a daily basis in our state. There's nobody in Kogi State today that is earning money, that the number of requests that they get on a daily basis is not more than what they are earning. Nobody can survive attending to the requests they get of people begging for money, begging for food, shelter. I mean, there are a whole lot of issues in terms of poverty in the state.
So, for you now, your candidature, Kogi West, I know you heard that too, their concerns. Much as Kogi West wants their sons to occupy that position, but they've got a challenge. Who do they choose? There are 3 of you going there, and clearly 3 of you going from the same place, your votes will be divided.
Yes, there's been, that agitation is there. So we have the Kogi West agenda, we have the 1616 agenda, we have the Igala agenda. You know, but the reality is this: there's this constituency that is the largest in the state that nobody's paying attention to. That is the constituency of the poor people. They are the largest in the state. You know, there's this commonality among all that are poor. You know, so, and we're focused on ethnicity, we're focused on religion, we're focused on where people come from. But I'm focused on the fact that we want to move our people out of poverty. We want to move from poverty to prosperity. This is my assignment, and that's why I'm focused on that. I'm not focused on the fact, I've never campaigned on the fact that I'm from Kogi West. I'm focused on the fact that there is a bigger problem in our state. The bigger problem is poverty. And we're focused on ethnicity and region as to where the governor comes from, where, I mean, we've had governors from the East for about 19 years. That has not stopped poverty in the East. The current governor is from the Central. That has not stopped poverty in the Central. And, I mean, even in his own word, people are poor, people can't eat. People are begging to eat in Kogi State today. The majority are begging for them to be able to survive. And we're here talking about politics of, oh, I'm from the West, I'm from the Central, I'm from the East, it should be our turn, it should not be our turn. I'm focused on the largest constituency, which is the constituency of the poor.
You know, that may be your thought, your thinking, which many will say they don't begrudge you for that. But is that what resonates amongst the people? Because some people also say the last presidential elections, many people have learned several lessons in terms of what to focus on, what not to overlook. Because some of them will say, look, if you hadn't overlooked some things now, who knows by now? Because if you look at opposition votes, it surpasses the ruling party's votes put together. So for this particular one, you still don't think that that is a major consideration since you're focused on the larger constituency?
Now, the point is this: what is the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal having a governor from your region? Or the ultimate goal is being able to help the state and the people out of poverty? That's my question.
Yeah, not bad, but I'm asking that in terms of how people vote, have you seen a difference in the pattern of how people vote to say this consideration will override? Yeah.
Of course, the sentiment will always be there. And I think in Kogi West today, amongst the 3 of us running, I mean, a survey will be able to tell you clearly that I don't see the other 2 from Kogi West being able to defeat me in Kogi West.
But the others will tell you, why not? Because they will say they've got more political experience than yourself. They've been in the Senate, they've been in the House. You know, some of them who are contesting say they can wield that as some sort of, you know, bragging right for these elections.
What have you achieved? What have they achieved in those positions? How well have they represented the people in those positions? So when you look at the fact that they've been there, they've been in power, they've been in the reps, they've been in the Senate, that to me it's even more of a disadvantage to them today. And when you talk about the spread, because if you're popular in your federal constituency and you're not popular in the East or in the Central, that doesn't guarantee you of being able to have the spread across the state. We have the spread across the state in terms of acceptability. A candidature, my candidacy is well accepted in the East and in the Central today, more than any of the two.
Well, you say that poverty is a big challenge in Kogi State. So what specifically do you plan to do to end poverty, and to what extent?
All right. The cause of the poverty is because we don't have enough money in circulation. So because we don't have enough money in circulation, what we need to do is to drive in money. Why don't we have enough money in circulation? Because we've been dependent on federal allocation in over 2 decades. Dependency on federal allocation is the reason why there's so much poverty. And it will get worse because today the federal allocation will keep going down with 87 trillion debt of the federal government, and last year using about 96% of our revenue.
Even though they received highest recently for some time.
To service debt. Now, the situation in Kogi State is this. You look at it from our budget. This year's budget is 172 billion naira. 58% of this budget is recurrent expenditure, 42% capital projects. 7.5% of that money is going to go back to federal government as value-added tax. How much is left for a state of 4.4 million people on 29,833 square kilometers? This is the situation we're dealing with. And we're saying we don't have enough money in circulation. What we're going to do is to drive in cash flow. How? It means we must help our people to make money. How? You must have products or services you are exchanging for money to come into the state. We must help our people to make money through our START agenda, STAT, solid minerals, tourism, agriculture, and trade as means of driving in cash flow into our economy. Because if you don't empower your people, because if you say a state is poor, it means the aggregate population of the state are poor. If you say a state is rich, it means the aggregate population, they are rich. So we must help our people to make money. If our people are not making money, the government cannot make money. So that's how we intend to drive in cash flow into our economy from solid minerals, for instance. There's a process to it. It doesn't belong to the state. It belongs to the federal government. So what we're going to do is this, through the process of prospecting, licensing, exploration, and exploitation, help our people to facilitate license from federal government, bring in technical partners, and give necessary guarantee to help them access funding for solid minerals, for commercial scale solid minerals. So we create products that we take out of the state for money to come into our economy. Tourism, on tourism, for instance, commercial organization.
Before you go to tourism, for solid minerals, how the requisite skills required? It's not just because, in your profession too, you know how you do your planning to provide housing, but for solid minerals, where is the requisite skill set for them to, because it goes beyond just getting prospective license?
I'll tell you, because I have experience in the sector. I talked about bringing in technical partners. So you have technical partners in that regard, and then what you need, you get the licenses, get technical partners, then issue the necessary guarantees to be able to access funding for exploration and exploitation. There are exploration that can be done within 3 to 6 months, like lithium, like tantalite. You can carry out this exploration within the short period of time.
Let's go to Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Those are some of the questions that I was going to ask you, really, because what are the competitive advantages or competitive edge that Kogi State has that, in your opinion, over the past 4 administrations, as you say, have not been explored? And you mentioned solid minerals now. According to the law, that is under the exclusive authority of the federal government. So what's the plan to explore that to the advantage of Kogi State?
Well, federal government has not stopped any prospective investor from accessing the licenses. So what we intend to do is to help our people to access license from the federal government. That will help us to be able to take advantage of the solid minerals because it belongs to the federal government. But they've not stopped anybody interested. So we'll help our people to get these licenses and bring in the technical partners for them. In terms of other advantage that we have, the geographical configuration of Kogi State, we are bounded by 10 states with a combined population of about 56 million people. This is a huge market that is bigger than Lagos market. And we want to take advantage of that. In terms of tourism, for instance, we have tourism. I mean, simple definition is commercial organization and operation of holidays and visits to places of interest. So we have several of those places of interest in Kogi State. We have the Confluence, amazing view. The Confluence, we have Agbaja Plateau, we have Mount Patti, that's about 1,500 feet above sea level, right in the heart of the city of Lokoja. We have Usikoko Cave, we have Omi Dam. Omi Dam, for instance, is a fantastic, amazing view, surrounded by hills, and it has 4 major benefits that we can take advantage of: for irrigation, for water, potable water for our people, for power generation, and as well as a resort for tourism. We have Oraha in Mopa. We have Obangogo in Kaba. Obangogo, for instance, there's a spring water in Obangogo. We have Ikpowu Cave in Ogidi. And then we have several monuments. We have the Eton Bridge in Olamaboro, and we have several other monuments in our state.
Clearly,
our goal is to target 2 million visitors into our state annually in the next 3 to 4 years. When we achieve this, 3 million visitors, 2 million visitors annually. If they spend 100,000 naira inside our state, that means we've been able to attract a cash inflow of about 200 billion naira. If they stay in Kogi State, average of 5 nights in a year, it means we would have been able to sell 10 million nights of hotels and short-let sales in a year. Now, at an average of 100,000 naira a day, a night.
Yes, my apologies. Clearly, the plan is copious. But, you said something about the huge population of people who are living below the poverty line in Kogi State, and that is certainly very, very concerning. But you would also recall that in our political lexicon, one of the things that we've heard said by politicians or maybe some political analysts is that poverty has been weaponized in a way that it is always to the advantage of certain category of people. So let's hypothesize on that for a minute. Suppose poverty has been weaponized against your candidacy or your victory in this election. What would be your game plan?
At this point, we've been engaging people. We've had over 150 town hall meetings so far, engaging our people. And we've been able to educate them sufficiently to understand the fact that exploiting the poverty that you're in will only last you for maybe, when they give you money, it will only last you for a day or 2 days. And you're saying, don't say anything. You don't have the right to ask me questions for the next 4 years. If that is a good business, a profitable venture, and of course the answer is no. So what we're doing is engaging our people and being able to help them understand the fact that if you sell your votes, for instance, that's part of the ways of exploiting the poverty of the people, against our candidacy. But in terms of our engagement of people, people are beginning to see the light, understand the fact that if you give me 10,000 for my vote, 10,000 will not last me for more than 2-3 days. Okay. So therefore, I would rather make my choice because they are tired, they are frustrated. And money today is failing them.
Okay.
And it will surely fail in this election.
Yeah.
Vote buying will fail largely. I can't say 100%.
Yeah.
But largely, vote buying is going to fail.
Let's speak to that for a minute.
The money spending today, we have situations of a whole lot of our
just a second, if you can hear me.
Key supporters are being offered money.
Yeah. Let's explore that for a bit, vote buying. Now, some have dichotomized vote buying from incentives. Which one are you using?
Well, we are not doing vote buying in terms of talking about incentives, giving people incentives because you want to get their vote. We have a serious situation in the state, which is people are poor, people can't eat. All we've been doing is to sell them hope. What we're selling to them is the hope of a better tomorrow, the hope of the fact that we'll be able to get them out of the poverty, out of poverty in 3 years. And a lot of them, through regenerative agriculture and all our other plans, of being able to empower them. And they're seeing that. And what we're doing is empowering people, creating a co-working spaces for students and the young people that will help them to be able to earn money for themselves.
Yeah, I get that, Mr. Bramo, but you know, one of the things, the reason we ask is, you know, if politicians can say that, okay, we're not doing vote buying, we're just, you know, giving them something that they need. For instance, you just talked about the fact that people can't find food to eat because they can't even afford to buy the food. So is this something that you are also thinking about, just helping them to get by, you know, even before the elections? Because there are those who would say, we can't even find enough strength to get out of our homes. So if the next politician goes to them with food or, you know, food stuff for them to be able to eat and be strong enough to go vote, would that be a bad thing?
Well, I think the motive is it's important at this stage, and I would say prior to now, we have been empowering people. I mean, since 2015, in terms of helping our constituents, in terms of school fees payment, in terms of some sort of help for flood victims, help for those that are widows and living below poverty line. And we've been helping people out before now.
Okay.
And so it's not the election period that will make them to feel like, oh, it's only people that are able to help us during the election. So we are careful with that, okay, for it not to be misconstrued.
Okay.
But we're doing our best to be able to help a couple of people working with us and working for us, okay, to help them get by the day.
All right, so, but you spoke about young people now, and it's rather concerning that a good number of times young people are largely disillusioned all over the nation. And it's a question we ask from time to time because that's the future. And if we do not prepare the young people for the future, let's just say that we are doomed in the future. So Chamberlain asked you questions around security or a lack of it the other time. And the people that are mostly used as cannon fodders are the same young people. So speaking specifically and directly to young people, what is your plan as a contestant? And whether or not you win, what will be your plan, your engagement to ensure that the young people today are not disillusioned about the future ahead of them?
Well, the solution to that problem in Kogi State, for instance, is wealth creation. Wealth creation is the foundation. We have to, as a matter of urgency, to help our people to start making money. That is a primary thing. That should be the focus right now, and that's what we're focused on. Because there's no community you get to in Kogi State today. You don't have a lot of young people that are graduates, jobless, and you know, and they end up with drugs and all the other vices in our various communities. Our plan is to be able to help them out of poverty, teach them how to make money, and help them to make money. And in doing this, that's setting up co-working spaces is one of the areas. Vocational education is one of the areas, which is why I was talking about the STAT, our START agenda, as in to drive in money from solid minerals, tourism, agriculture, and trade. Because when you drive in money, if you don't drive in money into the economy, in development economics, you drive in cash flow, then you train people to provide the services. This is how we intend to engage the young people, training them through vocational studies to provide the services in the economy. Because you have to engage them to make money. Because if they are not making money, they will take to other vices. Because poverty, as it were, poverty breeds violence. Poverty breeds insecurity. So if we don't deal with the issue of getting wealth creation and wealth distribution, we will not be able to get our young people engaged. No matter the program you're putting in place, if they're not going to be able to make money, they will not be interested in it.
Well, one other thing.
For instance,
yeah, okay.
in regenerative agriculture, all right, under our plan, under our manifesto, we intend to train 100,000 farmers over a period of 3 years, you know, and giving CFO land, 1 hectare per farmer, issue them CFO, because when you give CFO, you are creating instrument for funding for the people. 1 hectare will take a household out of poverty for life in 24 to 36 months on regenerative agriculture, because they'll be producing about 37 tons of food annually from 1 hectare. And 1 hectare will employ about 6 people per hectare. So you can imagine 100,000 hectares, we would have been able to engage about 600,000 people over the period of 3 years.
Okay.
Consumption per person per day per annum is about 780 kg, which means we will need about 86,000 hectares of land for us at 37 tons per hectare, for us to be able to even focus on food sufficiency.
All right.
Because food sufficiency in Kogi State will help us to be able to keep a lot of money in circulation within our economy.
Okay.
You know, at an average of 500 naira per person per day in Kogi State, it means we're spending about 2.2 billion daily and about 66 billion naira every month. We'll be able to keep this money within circulation, which will increase the cash flow in circulation and helping more people out of poverty. Okay. We are bounded by 10 states with about 56 million people. We target to feed at least 15 million people daily. At average of 500 naira per day, it means about 7.5 billion naira daily money in circulation and about 750 billion every 100 days in our economy. When we achieve this, who are those that will be making the money? The farmers will make money. The traders will make money. Processing will make money. Storage will make money. Packaging will make money. You can see this value chain. When they make money, what do they spend their disposable incomes on? This is how we intend to activate and run our economy, because we must drive in cash flow and be able to provide the services. And the last one is trade. We are the gateway between the North and the South, because Chamberlain mentioned, what are the okay, you asked a question about the advantages of Kogi State, and I was talking about the geographical configuration. We are the gateway between the North and the South. The southernmost pastoral state to the north to get food from Zamfara, from Sokoto, from Katsina, from Kano, and the northernmost pastoral state to Aba, to Onitsha, to Lagos. What we intend to do, everything you can get from the north will make available in Kogi, everything you can get from the south will make available in Kogi, thereby turning our state to a trade hub, a trade center. Everybody coming to buy and to sell in our state. And they will do 1 night, 2 nights of paying for hotel bills. When they're paying for hotels, our people are making money, and the government is making money. On the hotel sales I was talking about, if we're selling 10 million nights averagely a year, 10 million nights times 100,000, we mean that we'll have about 1 trillion naira cash inflow into our economy from hotel sales.
Okay, well, all of these plans that you're talking about, Mr. Bryman, my apologies.
Most part of the world.
Yeah.
Hotel sales
just a second,
20%.
if you can hear me. These are lofty plans that you are, really talking about, and a good number of people would say, okay, this is the way to go. Let's go with it. But then there is also the debacle of politics in Kogi State. So speak to the potency of your own party's campaign and political machinery to take on the system and beat other contestants that you are contending with. Because, that's the only thing standing, I would say, standing between you and the seat of government in Kogi State. So what is your political machinery's strength like to take on the system and win the polls?
It's engaging our people in conversations. And engaging our people in conversations, for instance, 40% of registered voters are young people, students, and youth. And I've been engaging this demographic consistently in the last few months. Some 3 months ago, you probably asked AA candidate in Kogi State, you could do your survey, independent survey in Kogi State, or Olayinka Bribo some 3 months ago. But that's not the case today. But today, we've been engaging our women, we've been engaging the youth, and the acceptability it's there across. And today we have stalwarts of the PDP decamping to AA in Angpa. We have stalwarts of APC decamping to AA, and we've been receiving them. Even as a matter of fact, today, a lot of people are decamping from Adavi local government, from PDP, from APC to AA, Ajakuta. A lot of people are decamping tomorrow from Labour Party, from PDP, from APC. In Lokoja local government, both the Lokoja 1, Lokoja 2, people are decamping all over the state into AA. And we have a couple of stalwarts of these other parties that are decamping into our party. And we've been receiving them across the state. And almost on a daily basis today, I mean, these are things just due to our engagement, selling our ideas, selling the vision, a clear vision of wealth creation, of wealth distribution, because people are tired of the poverty. Even those that are making money, they are tired of the fact that they are carrying more burden than they can bear in the state. So, and our message is well accepted all over the state. And that's why I'll tell you that in terms of the politics of it, I'm not afraid at all in any way. I'm confident of victory come November 11. And the slogan there in Kogi State today is 1111 AA, because we have a date with destiny. And with our date with destiny on the 11th of November, our people are going to turn out en masse to ensure that we come out victorious, because they are tired of being poor, of being dejected, ostracized, and frustrated in our state because of the poverty level that is unacceptable, unprecedented poverty level that has ravaged our state and our people.
Okay. One other issue that is not often talked about is accountability. Most of the time, the whole campaign, the whole idea is just vote for me and I'll do you well. I'll do well by you. I'll run your state to your advantage and all. But most of the time, once people get into office, to get access to these political office holders is usually a problem. How will your own governance be different, such that not only you, but your appointees will be accessible and accountable to people? So what's your system of accountability to the people of Kogi State, should you win this election?
All right, it starts first from the vision, because you must have something you're offering the people. And it's what you're offering people today, that's what you'll be held by in terms of accountability. And like you have a vision, a goal of wealth creation. It means our set objectives will be make money, save money, and then grow the economy. And this, I mean, the level of activities of government. So when it comes to accountability, you will be held accountable, we'll be held accountable by what we're selling to the people today in terms of what vision. And that's why we're being clear with our vision, so that you can use that as a marker, as a yardstick to measure our performance in office, because of the fact that we are telling our people, here is our vision. These are the things we intend to do, not just what to do, but how we intend to do these things. You know, so you can, that's what we're going to be used, that's what's going to be used to check our performance in office or our accountability in office.
So to the election proper, what are your fears and what are the things that you're optimistic about? By fears, I mean, what's the level of your satisfaction with the political umpire, beg your pardon, the election umpire, that's INEC, as well as the coordinating activities of the government of Kogi State?
Well, I think in terms of fears, I mean, the only concern today will be the issue of violence on the day of election. I mean, 2-3 days to election and on the day of election. That's my only fears. In terms of for INEC, I think going by the result of the last elections, this year, 2023 elections, and the fact that with Beavers, we've seen a whole lot of the loopholes and the lapses, and we believe that INEC will be looking at all of those areas. We've had engagement with INEC in the state, and we think they are ready, according to what they have said, that they are ready for all to be able to ensure that results are declared at the polling units. As long as results are declared at the polling units, we assure that everything will be transparent and will be okay. And of course, you can see from the tribunals today and the verdicts of the tribunal, I mean, it's clear that areas where there were manipulations, you know, people will always find justice, or mostly. We have the case of Kogi Central in the Senate election. We have recently the Nasarawa State, the PDP against the incumbent governor, APC. So we are quite optimistic that the process is in place. I mean, like I always say, that one good thing that has come into our process is beavers. And I think with beavers, we are very optimistic that votes will count. Because I'll give you an example. Kogi Central, for instance, in 2019 elections, from 3 local governments of Adavi, Okene, and Okehi local government, the governor had about 212,000 votes thereabout from 3 local governments in 2019. But in 2023 elections, with beavers, then there was no beavers. With beavers in 2023, the entire Central, the 5 local governments, the votes there was less than 110,000, in 2023, when beavers was used for the elections.
Okay.
So we are quite optimistic with that with beavers, votes will count largely.
All right. We'll take a short break now to take a few messages, and when we return, it's back to Chamberlain. Stay with us.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700 Furniture.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
And the great people of Imo State most heartily welcome the Vice President of Nigeria, His Excellency Alhaji Kashim Shettima, GCON, APC National Chairman Alhaji Abdullahi Ganduje, and the National Working Committee of the party, members of the Progressive Governors Forum, leaders and members of the APC, and all distinguished guests to the flag-off of the governorship campaign of His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodinma CON, the Governor of Imo State, and APC candidate for the November governorship election. We also welcome in a special way the chairman of the Imo State National Campaign Council and Governor of Cross River State, His Excellency Senator Basi Otto, and other members of the council to the ceremony. Welcome everyone. No, date Wednesday, October 11, 2023. Venue Dan Anyam Stadium, Owerri. Time 11 a.m. prompt. Signed His Excellency Governor Hope Uzodinma CON, Governor of Imo State and APC governorship candidate.
All right, welcome back. It's our concluding moments now with the AA governorship candidate for Kogi State, Mr. Olayinka Brahimo. Now, if I could just follow up a little bit on the INEC perspective here. They say, they put up a release some time ago, which I believe you've also seen, about the forthcoming elections. They say only 55% of the expected total of 189,180 polling unit agents have been uploaded to the designated INEC portal. For Kogi State, 37.6%, that's 23,720 out of 63,144 states have been uploaded. And then for the coalition agents, only 25.1% of the expected 15,804 coalition agents in the states have been uploaded. So that is a very, very little sum, and deadline stays, it won't close. So despite the interaction with political parties, even yours, they say the numbers are abysmal. What informs this seeming apathy?
I mean, we have 18 candidates in Kogi State. And, all the political parties feature the candidates. But you get to understand that a lot of these, some other political parties, their candidates are just there or either being sponsored just to occupy the space to prevent some other people from coming into the race. So a whole lot of those, I mean, you could probably pinpoint the number of candidates that are even campaigning. Lots of candidates are there as candidates, but they're not campaigning. They're not even doing anything at all. So probably maybe we have maybe 5 or so candidates out of 18 that are campaigning at all. So those that are not campaigning, of course, they will not be interested in featuring polling unit agents because it's a task and it costs money. I mean, to have your agents around the 3,508 polling units. So a whole lot of these parties don't have candidates, and thereby, they have candidates, but the candidates are not really contesting.
Now, just as we wind down again, now, some time ago in Kogi State, about 519 communities, 471,000 persons were displaced. And then the Commissioner for Health also went on to say that about 92 persons' facilities were disrupted and 24 people died as a result of flooding in Kogi State. How do you intend to address this?
First of all, in terms of flooding, the dredging of the River Niger cannot be overemphasized. Federal government, I mean, there's always money in the budget year in, year out for the dredging. But the federal government don't have money to dredge River Niger. They've been telling us the newer they're going to dredge every year. And this flooding, it's been on for a very long time. So what we intend to do is to engage the federal government, have a BOT arrangement, build, operate, and transfer arrangement with the federal government by setting up an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, to raise cash, equity, part debt. Also be able to move it to the private sector to carry out the dredging. Because if we're able to dredge the Niger, and then on a BOT arrangement, we'll be able to have maybe 20, 30, or 50 years, depending on the feasibility and the viability. That's one.
Okay, yeah.
So the other one is to build dams, where we can harvest excess water, down the line across various other channels, because we need to be able to harvest water to support dry season farming across. Instead of the water being a problem for us, we should be able to make the most of a devastating situation to take advantage of that.
So you don't seem to agree with those who think that those communities are actually on the path. That particular terrain is a flawed path, and so they shouldn't be there in the first place.
There are some communities that are on the flawed path. Of course, we need to relocate those communities from those flawed paths. But however, what about the communities that are not on the flawed path? Or because of the excess water? And you look at the River Niger, some part of it, the sand is so much that it's actually come up to the surface in some part. So, and that's why the water transportation is even difficult in some parts because of the amount of sand, the level of sand that's come up. And even this sand can be used in our own advantage because it's a lot of money when you're able to move out this sand and then we use this sand in construction. Because in our tourism plan, we will need to develop about 375,000 square meter of hotels and shortlets, buildings for shortlets, which will require a huge tonnage of sharp sand. You know, in terms of infrastructure, for school infrastructure, health facilities, and all of this, the construction level that will require a lot of sharp sand for this.
Let me pick up on that health part because he says 92 health facilities were affected. And so that already takes a dent, huge dent on already challenging health facilities, not just in Kogi State, but across the country. So what do you intend to do that this state government hasn't done to improve health care in Kogi State?
The problem with healthcare is accessibility and affordability. Those are the two major problems, accessibility and affordability. In terms of accessibility, it requires funding. Huge funding for accessibility, and they have to be strategically located. In terms of affordability, I mean, compulsory health insurance to be able to leverage for those that can afford and those that will not be able to afford, to be able to leverage and create a balance to help people for affordability, to have compulsory health insurance. That's what we intend to do. And that's why I keep talking about the fact that what we need today as a matter of urgency in Kogi State is that we have to drive in cash flow into our economy for the government to be able to make money. Because the only money we are making right now as a state is the money from federal allocation.
But you have to provide the healthcare first before they access it. If it isn't there, what are they going to access?
We have to make investment. We have to invest hugely in healthcare. Because from our survey, in terms of service availability for health, primary healthcare in the state, in most part, you have the building, but nothing inside, no personnel, no equipment inside. So, and in some places, you have equipment in dilapidated buildings. So it requires huge investment, which we intend to do. We were in a particular community in Akpasu yesterday night, Akpasu, Grenia axis, no school, no hospital, no primary health care in the whole region. So if you're sick and you don't know anybody in the local government headquarters, which is Kotokarfi, you will not have any help. And your kids can't go to school if you don't know anybody, if any member of your family is not living in Kotokarfi.
All right, so quite a job of work there, but we're going to keep our focus, our tabs on those elections and see how all of that plays out. Olayinka Brimo, governorship candidate of Action Alliance for the forthcoming Kogi governorship elections. Thank you for coming on, and all the best to you.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back in just a moment, and incidentally, we'll be talking health. Don't go away.
People that work hard within the health sector have to be appreciated for what they have been able to do with limited financing, with all kinds of challenges. Take insecurity, for instance. There are many health workers who had been kidnapped in the course of doing their work in rural areas in different parts of the country. Yet, health workers have continued to work hard to deliver services. Now, are they perfect? No. Is there scope for significant improvement? Yes. And that's why we have articulated these 4 buckets of things that we would do. My colleague and I, the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alausa, and I, myself, are committed, based on the President's mandate, to pursue those 4 elements to improve the overall state of health in Nigeria, one of which is to improve the governance of it. It's not just the federal government that has a responsibility for health of Nigerians. All state governors, all local government authorities have to play their part, invest, to ensure the services are delivered and the quality of services is good. You need to include everyone, not only the public sector, but the private sector in the conversation, the civil actors, to really speak, have a consensus as a country that we want to improve the health of Nigerians. We need to have better institutions that will regulate the performance of health. NAFDAC, others that are regulators in the sector, professional regulators. We need to have good data, and we need to be more transparent and accountable to Nigerians. And we need to speak to Nigerians with respect, and within ourselves reduce the discord. That is a realm of governance. We earn the respectability, but we forge ahead in one direction.
To Sunrise today, yes indeed. Now we're joined by Professor Ali Pate, who is the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Good to see you again, Prof. Thank you for coming out today.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Well, I know we touched a little bit on this health insurance the last time, but yesterday there was a significant event that occurred, so which is largely what we're going to focus on today. So just go ahead and tell us about this launch of the National Health Insurance Authority.
So we discussed in the past, financing of health is key to improving the health of Nigerians, to achieving universal health coverage. The National Health Insurance Authority is an important institution that will drive Nigeria's move towards that. Yesterday, we launched its operational guidelines for 2023 and going forward. That was a product of several weeks and months of consultation across different actors that tries to clarify the roles of various stakeholders in the promotion, in the regulation, and the integration of health insurance in Nigeria, across levels of government and with other actors in this space, so that we implement the mandatory health insurance that is provided by the NHIA law, which was signed in 2022. And that's an important part, and that clarifies the roles and responsibilities of actors and the processes through which we can expand access to health insurance to achieve universal health coverage and to provide financial protection for our population. We have 8.4% of Nigerians, less than 10%, are covered by any health insurance. This administration is focused to expanding health insurance, improving financial protection, as well as achieving universal coverage as a longer-term objective for us to save lives, to reduce pain, both physical and financial pain of Nigerians, as well as produce health.
You know, the last time we tried to identify that health insurance scheme, some of the key issues that happened, why that failed, because getting that right was very key to ensuring affordability and access to healthcare in the country. And several people went ahead and listed some of the challenges they saw with the NHIS, why it didn't work. And there was a long list: poor implementation of the Act, poor government funding of healthcare and health insurance scheme, optional enrollment policy, inappropriate practices by the regulatory agency, health maintenance organizations, and the providers, and lack of political will. They also added that part. So now that this has been launched, these guidelines, which you spoke a lot about yesterday, what makes you really optimistic that this time it's going to be different?
Nigeria's journey on health insurance has been a very long one, a tortuous one. It's more than 40 years in the making. But we're at a point where we have, by law, in 2022, the new National Health Insurance Authority and National Health Insurance Authority Act basically has made it mandatory. That is one of the deficiencies of the previous legal framework that we had around this idea. We've got a very strong institution and a collection of partners, not only at the federal level, but also with the states keying in through their state health insurance authorities and the other actors in the private sector to come around this agenda and execute to expand the coverage, the risk pool, basically, so that more Nigerians will be covered. So I think the journey that we have had has come to a critical turning moment, and we should expect a more faster expansion of health insurance in Nigeria once we implement in the direction that this operational guidelines has now provided for us to do.
You know, I also found that, in fact, from several literature out there, that the out-of-pocket expenditure as part of our total health expenditure, they say it was about 64%. Do you have any projections in terms of, now that this NHIA is in place, any projection in terms of how soon, what can reduce and when, things like that?
Nigeria, we have much higher proportion of out-of-pocket spending in our population than many other country in the region or even globally. We have among the highest. And that's a problem. And that's what we're trying to change now, driving in this direction through the NHIA. But it requires states to work along with us in terms of having the right capabilities in their state health insurance schemes, paying their counterpart funding to the federal government in terms of funding that has been made available for the Vulnerable Groups Fund, but also in terms of really standing up and enrolling their own employees in the formal sector side. But there are several other actors also in the private sector that will need to play their role in terms of complementing what the government is doing to move this forward. So yes, it's been a long journey. I would not venture to tell you that we'll get to 30% overnight, but we will make steady progress in expanding the coverage with health insurance on our path to universal health coverage. Mr. President has made promises that, in fact, millions of Nigerians will be covered, and we already have a provision, at least for the vulnerable groups, which we need to expand. It's not enough what is being put through the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, and we hope that private sector philanthropists would contribute, in fact, to that fund so that we take care of all vulnerable Nigerians, ensure they have access to affordable and quality health care.
Yeah, because, I mean, they need to be protected from financial hardships of these huge medical bills that are there. But I know my colleagues got questions on states, but before then, now, part of the challenge, too, for the NHIS, we look at this current guideline soon, is that they function as both the regulator and operator. That was in contravention of the Act, stipulating that they should function as a regulator with defined roles. But this NHIA now is going to be a little different, isn't it?
Yes, the NHIA is a promoter. It's a regulator of this sector. It gives it more teeth and, in fact, provides a role for different actors, including the state social health insurance authorities, which ought to be created and stood up by the state government, and also provided a distinct role for the HMOs, which are an important part of the ecosystem, in which case they can be involved in terms of supplemental insurance, or they can be third-party administrators for where there are deficits. So there's a clarity and role between what the NHIA would do and what the private sector would do and what states will do. It's all of those collectively and the fact that it's mandatory that will expand and will advance our progress in terms of getting to universal health coverage to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, improve financial protection, and ensure access, quality healthcare services for Nigeria. For the basic side, that is something that every Nigerian should be guaranteed access to the most basic healthcare.
This NHIA, it makes it mandatory for us to be on that scheme. So just like tax, the people have to be on this. So how are we going to ensure that this NHIA, I mean, they're going to implement it and then at the same time guarantee people's fundamental rights?
I think it's sort of embedded. Health is a human right as well. The access to health is a right for every Nigerian, and we should strive to get that. Now, the operational guideline is the first step. There's work that is undergoing in terms of implementing the mandatory aspect of this, and that will be coming out very soon, in addition to finding ways through innovative financing to expand the pool of fund. I'd mentioned previously that Nigeria has not been spending enough on its health, and we need to do more. We need to do more in terms of domestic financing at the federal level. We need to do more at the state level. And in fact, individuals can contribute more to their own health. And it is that collation of efforts that will improve the resource that is available to finance care for those, for all of us, in fact, including the most vulnerable among us, so that we don't leave people behind in terms of access to health.
All right, let me bring Ayo in on this matter before we get to other issues. Go ahead, Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, once again, one has to commend your efforts in getting these things done. And one of the questions that I was going to ask you, Chamberlain, already took you up on it, which is, you know, the fact that it is mandatory for every Nigerian to be on it. But the angle to that question for me is how this law and the authority will factor in small and medium enterprises, those who cannot even afford to get on the program. What's the plan for them? Perhaps by exploring that, responding to that, you want to speak to us exactly what the operational guidelines for the NHIA actually is. What are we to expect? What are Nigerians to expect? What are the things to do, when, where, and how?
The operational guideline is really the steps that are being taken to translate the law that was passed and signed 2022 in concrete way, clarifying the roles and responsibilities of various actors and the process through which we can ensure that the mandatory nature of health insurance that has been passed into law is actually manifested, providing the roles for the federal government, what it does through the NHIA, but also states in terms of their role in the context of health insurance in Nigeria, as well as the private sector. So over the period that will be ahead, I think we would see states standing up more of the state health insurance authorities. We can see the supplementary insurance that is going to expand through private sector, also through funding for the vulnerable groups, of which already there is provision through the Basic Healthcare Provision Act, which is 1% of a federation account that is allocated to primary health care, about half of which goes to the Vulnerable Groups Fund. A small amount, relatively, but it's expected that others will join in that pool so that we cover more of the poorest and vulnerable Nigerians to have access to insurance. The traders in the markets, the farmers, the teachers, others that may not be able to, who are in the informal sector, who are poor and vulnerable, should be covered. And that requires a concerted effort across different sectors to make that happen. That is what this operational guidelines try to do, to provide a roadmap and practically how this is going to happen across our country to expand health insurance in the period ahead.
It's essentially then the question of how exactly, or rather maybe I should be asking what do people need to do? You know, of course, that we have quite a number of people in the country who barely eke a living a day. You're also not unaware that there are a good number of people who are unemployed, sizable number of people in rural areas in Nigeria, and you've spoken to the Vulnerable Groups Fund. So how do they access this service, which you say is already being provided for through the Vulnerable Groups Fund?
So the first step would be for all states to ensure that their employees are actually enrolled and they pay their premiums as well, and that they pay their counterpart or the BHCPF provided funds. That is one practical step that state governments can do, and that will improve the affordability, the coverage of the population in their respective states. In terms of the Vulnerable Groups Fund, we already have some funding available, and we expect that there will be other additional resources that are more strategically placed to complement what is being put by the government. For instance, external partners, private sector philanthropists can join that Vulnerable Groups Fund to provide coverage for those who are most vulnerable in our population. I think we have a long way to go, but that road has to be started, and I think that's what we're trying to do, from less than 10% of Nigerians being covered by the health insurance program, after several decades of effort, to see concerted increase in terms of coverage of Nigerians in the health insurance program.
Honorable Minister, you nailed it yesterday in your presentation when you mentioned the fact that we've been at this for 40 years and only 10% of Nigerians have been covered. That is indeed concerning. A good number of people will reference it to the diminished trust between government and the governed. Already people have that issue with the federal government. And now states have to domesticate this in their own, in the individual states. We understand that this governor of Lagos State already issued a directive in that regard. How do we shore up that trust deficit so that people can buy into this? Because, you know, most of the time when we mention government, people are a little edgy and iffy.
Yes. So I think this is an important point, and I think the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President is precisely that, resetting the compact and delivering on those promises that we have laid out. And that requires us working to earn the trust of the population by providing the resources so that our people being covered through the Vulnerable Groups Fund is the formal enrollment in the health insurance program available. At the federal government, there is no issue. All federal employees are formally employed. Now, if states do that, and other employers in the private sector also complying, and that's the work that we all have to do to manifest this aspiration that has been laid out. At the end of the day, is the Nigerian population that has to build consensus that, in fact, moving towards universal health coverage is important. We are, with the leadership of the President, providing that direction and providing an institutional backup through the NHIA and a framework through which states, private sector, and others can join in that. And I call on all Nigerians to actually support this direction so that we begin to take into account the entirety of our population and the health of our population as a priority and not leave anyone behind in terms of access to basic healthcare service. Universal health coverage is a right. I think there should be no person trading off between whether to pay for food for their families or to pay for treatment of malaria, for instance. And there are many Nigerians who are being pushed into poverty because of catastrophic health expenditure. When something like cancer hits a family or kidney disease, some folks have to sell their assets to be able to afford that, or the cost of pharmaceuticals. And that is what we're trying to do, set the direction and provide an institutional framework. And federal government is putting forth the money, but that has to be complemented. It's not going to be enough by itself, and others have to join in that movement. So it's all of us together moving in one direction that will achieve what has been difficult to achieve for more than 40 decades in Nigeria.
When you talk about the cost of pharmaceuticals, it is concerning. I remember having a conversation with the DG of NAFDAC. He spoke to the fact that we are in some kind of jeopardy. She spoke to the fact that we're in some kind of jeopardy because a good number of the things that are being used to produce drugs in Nigeria are imported. That puts us at one risk or the other. So it also speaks to the cost of medications that come into the country and that people can get across the counter or prescribed. But let's take that on when we return from this break, Your Excellency. Please stay with us.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700-FURNITURE.
The government and the great people of Imo State most heartily welcome the Vice President of Nigeria, His Excellency Alhaji Kashim Shettima, GCON, APC National Chairman Alhaji Abdullahi Ganduje, and the National Working Committee of the party, members of the Progressive Governors Forum, leaders and members of the APC, and all distinguished guests to the flag-off of the governorship campaign of His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodinma CON, the Governor of Imo State, and APC candidate for the November governorship election. We also welcome in a special way the chairman of the Imo State National Campaign Council and Governor of Cross River State, His Excellency Senator Basi Otto, and other members of the council to the ceremony. Welcome everyone. No, date Wednesday, October 11, 2023. Venue Dan Anyam Stadium, Owerri. Time 11 a.m. prompt. Signed His Excellency Governor Hope Uzodinma CON, Governor of Imo State and APC governorship candidate.
Thank you for staying with us. The Honorable Minister, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare is with us this morning, Professor Ali Pate, in our Abuja studio. Well, you know, we're talking about the cost of medications, you know, that people have to contend with. Chamberlain was speaking to about 64% of Nigerians having to pull resources out of pocket in the past. How do we address this in a way that will be Nigeria will be safe and insulated from the vagaries of, you know, rising cost of medication? Someone was sharing that a particular drug that was probably being sold for, you know, maybe less than 10,000 is now going for something in the region of 26,000 naira. And so, help us speak to that in the light of this new arrangement of the NHIA, that's the National Health Insurance Authority, and how that the authority and the initiative of the insurance scheme will help to ameliorate these costs.
In the context of the 4-point agenda that I had laid out a few weeks ago, for instance, the improvement of governance, this act and its operationalization is key to it. Improving population health, service delivery and financing is key to it. That's what the health insurance expansion would do. And the medical industrialization is trying to build an ecosystem so that our private sector is able to produce locally quality pharmaceuticals that would be affordable to our population, since we don't have to import them, and also ensuring that we have health security, and that includes domestically manufacturing the commodities that we need. Recently, as part of this act, NHIA initiated the medical supply partnership with 12 pharmaceutical companies who will produce branded medicines, a list of very critical medicines, branded with the NHIA logo, in partnership with the pharmaceutical industry, to guarantee not only the cost, but also the quality of those pharmaceuticals. And that will go a long way in reducing the overall proportion of the spend on pharmaceutical as part of the delivery of healthcare, but also potentially lowering the cost even for those who may not yet be insured, because the proportion of pharmaceutical expenditure out of pocket that we had mentioned is actually significant. So by lowering the cost of pharmaceuticals, at the same time guaranteeing the quality, we would be addressing that. And I think in the next 1 to 2 days, you will see the NHIA Director General and the Director General of NAFDAC working together and addressing Nigerians in terms of the way we are working in the health sector to improve the affordability while at the same time guaranteeing quality. You don't want to have affordable drugs, but they are of poor quality. You want to address both the affordability while at the same time guaranteeing quality. And the medical industrialization, our domestic pharma industry, will need to be revived in a way that it produces much of what we need. At the moment, 70% at least for pharmaceuticals, our generic pharmaceuticals are imported for us from countries that we don't have full control. And so trying to deal with that, as well as dealing with the supply chain within our country to ensure that, in fact, we can guarantee that counterfeit and substandard medicines will not get into that space, because that will harm Nigerians as well, in addition to the harm to their own pockets.
Is there a timeline within which states must domesticate this law in the states?
I think it's overdue. The overall effort, I think, is overdue. So we expect and we will urge all states to domesticate this law as soon as possible. There is work that is underway and will come out with it in terms of the mandatory aspect that has been the central feature of this new law, which has created and changed the nomenclature from National Health Insurance Scheme to National Health Insurance Authority, and that expects states to actually have their own state health insurance authorities, which have more teeth, and states need to domesticate it really as soon as possible. I think it's overdue. There are many Nigerians suffering from the cost of ill health, not only in terms of their productivity, but also in terms of the cost of taking care of their loved ones and themselves. And we need to address that. And that's going back to the idea that you alluded to, that Nigeria health can be a basis for reunification, but also re-establishing that compact between the population and the state. And state government should complement what the federal government is doing through NHIA and through the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund to ensure that all Nigerians have access to basic healthcare on our path to universal health coverage, and that the most vulnerable populations are also covered. At the moment, roughly 1.7 million vulnerable Nigerians are covered through the Vulnerable Groups Fund. But we intend to expand that, and we hope that we would get the resources to expand it. Not only what government is able to put in, but also what other actors, our private sector, our philanthropists, will expand. We should be our brother's keeper when it comes to health. It should not be a poor person somewhere who will have his or her child die from a vaccine-preventable disease because they have not been able to, the health system is not able to provide it for them, or someone who needs the care that is critical. Vaccines are free, for instance, but there are other conditions that require people to pay for pharmaceuticals, for instance, pay for medical tests to ensure that those do not become barriers to access to quality healthcare.
This leads me, Prof, this leads me to this next question of whether or not there are certain conditions, health conditions that are covered or not. Once I had a conversation with a medical practitioner, a physician in a private hospital, and he said that he would not take, their hospital wouldn't take certain recommendations from certain institutions, particularly of state, for the reason that for the reason of what the states will pay them as a result of their intervention in the health insurance scheme in that particular state. So are there conditions? For instance, another concerning figure that came from us yesterday on this program is that we have very low intervention in the area of mental health. The medical practitioner who spoke with us, a psychiatrist, said about maybe like 1/3, like 60 million Nigerians are dealing with one kind of mental illness or the other. We've also seen statistics, I'm sure you're aware of it, that says that about 70% of the population or so are dealing with hypertension. So I'm just wondering if there are other cases. You mentioned cancer the other time. Are there certain cases that are not covered under this scheme?
Well, there's a basic healthcare package which has been defined, has been costed, and that includes the most common ailments that we have, whether they're maternal, whether they are non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, even aspects of cancer care, sickle cell disease, mental health. Those are all included in that basic healthcare package. There are others that you might say they are more private good. So, for instance, plastic surgery. Why should there be public resources geared towards financing someone's choice to do plastic surgery, for instance? And there are others that may be much more expensive because this is an insurance pool that would need more strategic interventions. So in terms of cancer care, for instance, there's a cancer care fund, and there's also an intervention around dialysis. So dialysis for kidney disease is covered up to certain sessions, and then there is an effort put forth by the federal government to intervene in terms of the kidney disease for others strategically. Those efforts are on the way. But at the end of the day, I keep going back to this point that to improve the health of Nigerians, all levels of government needs to step up. What the federal government is doing is investing, has robust institutions, and has put quite a bit of effort in setting the direction, providing the framework, mobilizing its own resources, but also external resources. What we need is states to equally prioritize health, strengthen their own institutions, so that all the population that we have, the disparities that we see are minimized, and that we cover our population as the Nigerian state.
You know, so part of those, I mean, the poor government funding of healthcare and health insurance scheme were part of the factors that was identified as to why the NHIS didn't achieve as much as it was desired to. Hence this NHIA and its operational guidelines. But then there's this basic healthcare provision fund as well. So the funding component is crucial. I see a long list of guidelines here, several pages of these guidelines. So talk to us about this, because I know you were instrumental to this coming on stream. So what do we expect with this guideline?
So you mentioned the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, which is really an outcome of the health reform that has taken place over many years, and has put 1% of the Federation account aside into that fund to advance primary healthcare in Nigeria. 45% of it is on the supply side, which is the Primary Healthcare Development Agency, which is more on the input side, the human resources and all. The other part, 47%, is on the NHIA side, more on the demand side, on the affordability side. And that is channeled towards the Vulnerable Groups Fund. It's not the entirety of the Vulnerable Groups Fund, but it's a contribution towards that. Expectation being that private sector, philanthropists and others will join in that to cover increasingly higher numbers of the poorest and vulnerable populations in our country, so that they have health insurance. And there are hundreds of thousands of our population in rural areas right now who have access to health, who have health insurance. They can get the care that they need at no cost, because it's covered under this scheme. And we need to expand that. And that expansion will be a gradual process. We are in the process of operationalizing the BHCPF. We're going to make it the anchor for driving the renewed hope agenda in health, as directed by the president. As I mentioned, the president really is keen that we transform, we break through in the Nigerian health system, deliver better for all Nigerians, and that we do it in partnership and in coordination with states, as well as with private sector and other actors. So that's the anchor that we would use. The element that is related to health insurance scheme, the Health Insurance Authority, and the guidelines that you mentioned is on the demand side, on the affordability side. It also touches on the supply initiative, which is linked to the industrialization that we are also going to be working on going forward.
So the HMOs, providers and enrollees were exposed to some sort of risk with the last scheme, the NHIS. So I just had some list of some of the concerns that quite a number of them raised while we just went around sampling opinion. And they said, a situation where a provider receives the same premium for a 75-year-old and the 15-year-old never provided or promotes efficient service delivery. What do we expect this time?
I think first of all, with the law and the operational guidelines, the role and responsibility of different actors is clarified. HMOs have the opportunities to drive supplemental insurance, be involved in private health insurance, as well as third-party administrators. And states have their role in terms of their health insurance authorities and, of course, the National Health Insurance Authority as the regulator. And the pool that has to be created has to be large enough. At the end of the day, it's the aggregation of this, you might call micro pools, into one large pool that will guarantee universal health coverage for all Nigerians. So the space is an ecosystem. And the HMOs are an important part of that ecosystem, but the roles and responsibilities have never been as delineated as they have now been with this new act and the operational guidelines that we launched yesterday.
So does it mean that a provider with 5 enrollees and perhaps one with 1,000 enrollees cannot receive the same rate of payment anymore?
I think in terms of the individuals covered, Yes. Yes.
Okay. So maybe I should slow down this act and go to other issues that are bothering Nigerians on this matter. You know,
can I just add one thing? I think back to the question of exclusion. Recently, there's been concern about patients who show up at the emergency facilities and police reports being asked whether gunshot wounds or accidents. That's really unfortunate. But for all federal teaching hospitals, for instance, I was in Maiduguri over the weekend. Lives have to be saved. That's first. And we've re-emphasized that. All our hospitals, and I believe that they are doing that, that no person should come with an emergency, life-threatening challenge and be made to lose their lives while awaiting for police report. Lives should be saved. Saving lives comes first. I just want to make that point. And that's the direction that we have given, and that's what we would pursue. And we hope that all hospitals, including private hospitals, will have this mindset that in health, we save lives first.
So in other words, there has to be an enforcement mechanism by your ministry. Would there be, I mean, your ministry should be accessible. If people have complaints that these health facilities are still flouting this directive.
Yes. Yes. All federal hospitals that are directly under our purview, and we'll also work with the states to ensure that all hospitals, because the regulation of health is an area where there's also that similar fragmentation between federal government and states. States regulate the hospitals under their purview. So in states regulated hospitals, we expect that that direction of the federal government will be an example that they also follow. But it's not only the public facilities, there are also private facilities. Yeah. As health professionals, saving lives comes first.
Yeah, that should be the key. So hoping that both state commissioners of health and several other agencies in those states should ensure that these things are enforced. You did mention how we import a lot of drugs from countries we have no control over, nothing whatsoever. So drugs, they all come into this country and it causes a huge challenge. And I know that there's been several attempts, for instance, in the area of vaccines, to ensure we have some sort of, at least a leverage, a foothold in the country here. Could you talk to us about, one, the vaccines, and what are we doing to ensure we have basic components of some key medicines and drugs in this country manufactured here?
I think Nigeria is late in the game of this in terms of the pharmaceuticals, but also the biologicals like vaccines. Many years ago, we used to produce yellow fever vaccine at Yaba, but we left that to fall apart. But within the context of what Mr. President wants us to do as part of his renewed hope agenda, this idea of unlocking the healthcare value chain and medical industrialization is an important pillar of that, to reverse it. And that requires policy interventions, it requires regulatory interventions, and it requires financing and investments. So what NAFDAC has been doing, now it's reached maturity level 3 as a regulator. It needs to go up to level 4 over time. That means the ability to regulate what comes into our country and how those things are being distributed. That will help our domestic industry as well to have the muscle strength, basically, to produce quality products. Because the fact that we want to produce locally doesn't mean we should produce lower quality. We should produce the highest quality that we can produce, but within the country. Now, there are other aspects that are needed in terms of the active pharmaceutical ingredients, the excipients, some of which we'll have to harness them locally, and some of which we'll still have to import them. But let them be imported and be streamlined in how they come into the country. There's the overall business environment, the ease of business environment, which goes beyond health, which requires other aspects of government, whether it's customs, whether it's trade and investment, working together. And I believe that Mr. President is working towards getting all of those actors to work in tandem as one government to improve the enabling environment. And then the demand, the market shaping. What NHIA has done through the Medical Supply Initiative is one example of shaping the market so that there is better access in terms of affordability, but also better quality of those products. And then investors. In just the last few weeks since we've been in office, there have been several outreaches to us by individuals who are interested, who who are local, but also external investors to come in because we have a large market. We are 220 million Nigerians. We have the market pool that folks who want to invest and produce here. In vaccine technology, for instance, the new technology of mRNA vaccines, we have had conversations, in fact, with a few other African countries that we would, for instance, on Lassa fever, begin to position ourselves when a vaccine becomes available in the period ahead, maybe in the next 1-2 years. There may be a vaccine against Lassa fever. It may be the mRNA vaccine might be just like Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. Lassa is here in Nigeria, the town in Borno State. So how can we position that, in fact, Nigeria is an actor that will serve us for today, but will also serve us in the case of another outbreak or pandemic in the future, that we have some manufacturing capacity in our country. There's a BVNL effort that has been going on for many years. We look into it closely to see whether there are structural limits, whether it's sort of the way it's financed, or the technological challenges that will need to be resolved. But at the end of the day, we need to have a portfolio of actors that are contributing in this medical industrialization agenda, and with the regulatory framework in place to guarantee safety, efficacy, but also the financing framework that allows it, including from the private sector, to happen.
Good place to anchor, Professor Muhammad Ali Pate, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Thank you for coming on, and well done for the work you're doing.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, let's take a comment or two. We have some who are watching. This is from Professor Imonoha, who says the economic development and prosperity of Kogi State must evolve through and from the local to state economy in building a viable and sustainable development economy whose principles and policies are interdependent in building an entrepreneurial economy that is indigenous. This will unleash the power of true conceptualization of an industrial and innovating economy in transforming a communal, emerging economic integration and a prosperous state. We also do have this one from about the health, which we just spoke about. Taiwo Olokbade says, aside insecurity and lack of food, another major challenge confronting Nigerians is lack of quality health care delivery. It's really amazing that since 24 years of unbroken democratic rule, Nigeria still doesn't have functional primary health care facilities in up to 70% of the 774 local governments nationwide. If this is one of the achievements of Tinubu administration, Nigerians will show appreciation for it.
Professor Sakinboyewa has this one. The level of violence we are seeing in Kogi is alarming. However, Kogi voters should come out en masse to vote. Traditional leaders, CSO, security agencies, and election monitoring groups must play their critical role of promoting peace, protecting the integrity of the Kogi governorship election, and ensure it is violence-free. Musa Mohammed, speaking in the same vein, says it's so amazing that politicians have solutions to problems before they are elected into office, and when they get into office, those solutions are not practically achievable in the real world. They start to blame previous government. We have a lot to do as citizens.
Yeah, we sure do. So there you go. That is the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I am Chamberlain. So
have a beautiful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
begins when news breaks, but there's much more in the details. That's where Special Report comes into the picture, locating source and destination of the news.
Something needs to be done. We don't need to negotiate that. Government should see what we are doing.
Bringing your perspective to the fore.
If those arrested are those protesting against police brutality, I would say that such arrest is unjustified.
Exploring angles that may provide solutions, giving you the opportunity to understand the issues and make decisions. Watch Special Report on Channels Television.
Millions of people living together in one community, working together in the same trade. We go into their midst, find out